This is going to be a bit different from some of my other Twisted Tale reviews. When Liz Broswell writes a horrible Twisted Tale, she gets dishonor. But this book, When You Wish Upon a Star by Elizabeth Lim, gets a valiant effort. Let me give you some constructive criticism. Perhaps you can do better next time. What it says here is, what if the Blue Fairy wasn't supposed to help Pinocchio? That's part of it. Really, most of this book is a prequel to Pinocchio. It's a story of how the Blue Fairy became a fairy, and it actually has some decent enough world building with how the fairies function and the magic that's in this world, and there's like problems with the system of fairies actually gets addressed in a satisfactory way. So you might be wondering, what's the problem? Well, the problem is, a big part of this book is her sister Ilaria, who becomes a evil fairy. And when I say that a lot of the book is centering around Ilaria, I mean, I'm not sure which one of them had more time dedicated to their character, Ilaria or the Blue Fairy. And Ilaria is hard to put up with for that long. She's such a brat, and thankfully the book knows that she's a brat, and it's not expecting you to advocate for the way that she's a brat, and you're not supposed to say yes, queen, when she does something arrogant. But the Blue Fairy still has love for her sister and is so patient with her and still wants her to become good in the end. And that's hard to relate to because Ilaria never shows much goodness throughout the book. In fact, the Blue Fairy's not the only one who has so much love for Geppetto, who's not an old man at the beginning of the book. He has a crush on Ilaria, and it's hard to justify his feelings for her. So it's just kind of frustrating to have these people want the best for Ilaria when she's such an annoyance. And another way that Ilaria being a brat, an insufferable brat, derails the story is the fact that she has her descent into madness and she becomes an evil fairy, but I don't feel sorry for her at all, and I can't... It's not like you can point to that and say how the innocent have rotted away, because I can't tell the difference between how she was before and her new attitude as an evil fairy. So when the Blue Fairy says she can find her sister, her good sister, underneath all that dark fairiness, I don't know what she's talking about because she was always horrible. It's not like I can feel sorry for her, because a lot of the stuff that she deems a tragedy unto her is just her sister's ambition and her getting to go be a fairy, because Ilaria didn't want to be left without her sister in the village they grew up in. There is something else that contributes to her descent into madness, but even that is something that takes a lot longer than it should have. Reading this book, it feels a lot like so much of the book should have been just a few chapters, and that's not something you want your reader to feel for 474 pages. So it's not horrible like a Liz Broswell book, but I cannot give it a wholehearted recommendation. The parts of the book that focus on the Blue Fairy are a bit better, though. Not only is she a more pleasant presence than Ilaria, she has a better struggle of her decision to leave her home because she feels compelled to do good things as a fairy. If you hear these pros and cons that I've laid out and you decide that you still want to buy the book, I would say you could skip a few of the chapters that are focused on Ilaria. You're not missing much benefit if you do that. The next Twisted Tale I've just started reading a little bit of is Go the Distance. This one is by Jen Colonita. She's the author of another Twisted Tale, Conceal, Don't Feel. Okay. She's also the co-author of Polar Nights Cast into Darkness. Dishonor! You may have clicked on this video wondering if When You Wish Upon a Star is worth reading, and since I have not given a wholehearted recommendation, you might be wondering if you're not going to read When You Wish Upon a Star, what shall you read? So I have a recommendable book with me. This is The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. It's a bit slow at first, but it picks up a lot later on, and the story gets a lot more interesting as it goes. And there's a lot more action scenes later in the book than there are earlier in the book. So if you buy it and it's not grabbing you immediately, hang on, keep going, please. One of the protagonists is Jovis, and normally I hate protagonists that don't want to do the plot. You know, the ones that say, I'm not a hero. Normally I hate those protagonists, but this guy actually has reasons why he's hesitant to join the rebellion against the Emperor. For one thing, he actually has something else he'd rather be doing. He's trying to find his missing wife. And also he's very dubious about the rebellion for pretty justified reasons. There's one part of the book where one of the rebels is talking about how she wants the wealth to be distributed more evenly, and you think that kind of sounds like communism. I don't know about this, but the rebellion is not exactly portrayed as unquestionably the good guys. There's even implications that the leader of the rebellion might be just as bad as the Emperor if he was in charge. Another one of the protagonists is Lynn, and she's the Emperor's daughter who's learning about the bone shard magic, and the bone shard magic is a pretty interesting magic system. The way they do it is they take a shard of bone from children in the tithing festival, I think is what it's called. Perfect thing to recommend to Disney fans. They put those bone shards into these constructs that are like cobbled together from different animal parts. And when those bone shards are used, they suck the life out of the person that they were taken from. It's a pretty dark magic system, and she struggles with not wanting to suck the life out of people, but also she's desperate to improve her situation with her father and not have the Emperor's foster son be the one to take over. I'm not going to spoil what happens, but there's more to it that we find out about her story that makes it a lot juicier. I haven't read the second book yet. I'm going to eventually, but I don't know if things I've just said about the rebellion are going to age poorly. I don't know if the second book is better or worse than this one. I'll tell you later at some point, I guess. Speaking of literature, I've been making an audiobook version of Winnie the Pooh, the original Winnie the Pooh. It's in the public domain, so I can do that without getting in trouble. I have part 1 of it out right now. I'll make part 2 eventually. So remember to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, and read The Bone Shard Daughter instead of When You Wish Upon a Star, unless you want to read When You Wish Upon a Star. It's not something I would recommend wholeheartedly, but I wouldn't stop you from reading it, I guess.